Hi everyone, this is Nick Pollock here from Roar Lions Roar. While you're here, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that alert bell so you never miss any of our new content. And if you prefer to listen instead of watch, make sure you check us out on your podcast platform of choice where you can subscribe and download each new episode. Thanks for watching and thanks for listening. Go State!
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Roar Lions Roar. I'm your host tonight, Matt Filipovich, joined by my phenomenal co-host, Mr. Bill DeFilippo. Bill, what's going on, brother?
Not much. Easy afternoon, I would say, for the Nittany Lions. Were able to take care of business on Saturday, and now they're positioned very well to be a team that ends up hosting a home playoff game. Which, I think at the beginning of the season that I certainly would have taken that. I know there are others who would have wanted them to not have to play a home playoff game, but I certainly would have taken that.
An easy Saturday, it might be putting it lightly. The Nittany Lions roll in West Lafeyette on Saturday by a final score of 49-10. The Nittany Lions improved to 9-1 on the season and dropped the Boilermakers to 1-9 on the season. Players of the game for Penn State, according to the program, were Drew Aller and Tyler Warren. Aller's final stat line, 17 for 19, 247 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air. Tyler Warren, 3 catches for 63 yards and 1 touchdown through the air. And on the ground, on the ground, Warren, 3 carries for 63 yards and 1 touchdown, and catching the ball, 8 catches for 127 yards and 1 touchdown. Defensively, it was given to Abdul Carter, who played, I thought, the best game of the season so far. 5 tackles, all 5 of them solo, with 2 of those being tackles for loss. And special teams player of the game for Penn State was Zion Tracy, who also tacked in, whether that be on defense or special teams, 4 total tackles, as well as a decent job returning the football in the punting game. Bill, that was an ass-kicking, I think, to say the least. I think a lot of us were hoping it would be an ass-kicking, but that was a real ass-kicking.
Yeah, it was an interesting ass-kicking because I've seen a little bit of, some analysis, some of the way fans have talked about the game, etc., saying that Penn State was too reliant on Tyler Warren, obviously overly reliant on Tyler Warren. And I kind of had the exact opposite read on this. I thought this game fed directly into they basically are daring you to throw the football and give the football as frequently as possible to Tyler Warren. Are you going to do that, or are you going to try and spread the ball around for the sake of spreading the ball around? And they took the option where they threw it to Tyler Warren early. They threw it to Tyler Warren often. They snapped the ball to Tyler Warren and had him get involved a little bit in the running game and had him comprehensively take over the football game while the defense did what we expected them to do. Purdue didn't score its only touchdown until the 2s and the 3s and walk-ons got into the game. So a really comprehensive game win for Penn State.
The Warren criticism, I think, it's dumb. To be candid, and get the ball to your best player as often as possible. I don't think we're going to be looking back on this season and thinking, wow, they really shouldn't have given it to Tyler Warren as often as they did. We didn't do that with Saquon. We didn't do that with KJ Hamler. We didn't do that with Jahan. Football has evolved a lot. And, I get you still need those dominant receivers out wide. But, Bill, I think you said it earlier. If Tyler Warren was a wide receiver putting up his pass-catching numbers, everybody would be losing their mind. I get that he's not. I get that how they do it is a bit different. But we can start, I think, to view Tyler Warren like we viewed those guys who were those key cogs of some successful Penn State offenses. Again, you weren't complaining that Saquon got the ball as often as he was. Tyler Warren is having a Saquon-level season relative to position.
And I think when this game happened also is feeding into a lot of this, because at this point, every person around Penn State who watches Penn State, who talks about Penn State, again, whether it's you're a fan or not or whatever it is, you're not watching these games thinking about what Penn State is doing against Purdue, because Penn State's going to beat Purdue.
Right.
You're thinking of this game as essentially a non-conference game ahead of when conference play starts, only instead of it being a non-conference game, it's playing the worst team of the Big Ten. And the quote unquote start of conference play here is when you play a playoff game. And if this exact game happened in the second or third week of September, I mean, it kind of did happen in the second or third week of September when Penn State beat Kent State 56-0. But if this game happened when the Bowling Green game happened, for example, let's say this game happened, Penn State beats Bowling Green 49-10, 1,000,000 yards for Tyler Warren. It's the Tyler Warren show, blah, 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 all that. And you put the Bowling Green game here. And, Penn State has a nervy, but they were able to pull it out, win against a conference team 34-27. I don't think anyone is like that concerned. Like, this felt to me in a lot of ways like how Penn State approaches its non-conference games, where it just wants to go out there, or how Penn State approaches any game against an overmatched opponent, where Penn State goes out there and says, screw it, we're just going to do whatever we feel like doing in the way that this game is going to play out. That means we are going to get the ball to Tyler Warren as much as possible because Purdue is going to make it easy for us to get the ball to Tyler Warren.
The thing I was always curious about when I saw people being like, where are the wide receivers? It's like, I feel like we saw that happen, and I talked about it on the preview pod. The Maryland game last year, where Penn State was like, where are the receivers? Dante Cephas has a 2-touchdown performance against Maryland, and nobody immediately thought, oh my God, the receivers are here. So like, what really could Penn State's receivers have shown you in this game that made you think, or quelled those concerns that people are going to have going into the postseason, whatever that looks like? I don't know. I mean, I get it. Penn State fans want to feel more confident in the guys out wide, but I think you got what you got. And if what you got is Tyler Warren, that's a lot better than a lot of other teams are ever going to have. And I want to make sure we appreciate that. There is nothing wrong with the offense running this way. Is there maybe a ceiling on Penn State? Yeah, probably. But like, enjoy the ride right now. Like, we'll focus on the playoff or whatever comes next when that time comes. Like, in terms of Penn State playing Purdue on November 16th, that was the best performance I think they could have asked for. Honest to goodness. With everything the offense gave them, with how efficient Drew Aller was, with the defense playing dominant, with how many guys got into the game, I just really think, and I understand the concerns and I get why people are doing it, I would just recommend pumping the brakes on your concerns over a Tyler Warren performance that led to, I think, him being named the Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week.
Yeah, and one thing that I would say is that when you look at the wide receiver room as well, because the wide receiver, like, that's the concern, that is the fear here, that Penn State has to give it to Tyler Warren over and over and over again because they don't have the wide receiver room. Mm-hmm. Purdue sucks. Purdue is a terrible football. Purdue is the worst team in Power 5. If not for the fact that each of the last 2 of the last 3 weeks, Ohio State is in there as well. But other than the Ohio State game, where, yes, problems with Penn State's receiver room once again, I understand the consternation. Penn State has played a top 30 defense in SP Plus in each of the last 3 weeks before Purdue. Again, Ohio State were filtering it out. Against one of them, Wisconsin, 9 for 123 yards from the wide receiver room, 8, 123, and 1 from the wide receiver room against Washington. Wisconsin, number 20 team of the country in defensive SP Plus. Washington, number 27 team in defensive SP Plus. So it's not like there's no way that they are ever able to get the ball to the wide receivers, that the wide receivers are never going to be able to do anything. If you want to sit here and basically say that Penn State is never going to be able to get the job done with this receiver group against, again, Georgia, against Ole Miss, against an SEC Tennessee, an SEC team that they would have to play in the first round of the playoff, that's fine. I understand that. I don't think that would be the case, or that would no longer be the case if, Trey Wallace caught 6 balls for 94 yards and 2 touchdowns against Purdue. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100% with you on that. Like, again, nothing in that Purdue game can change it. Penn State took what they could get, and what they got was 45 points and like 8 football fields, it felt like, worth of actual offense. So not too much to nitpick, at least on my end. But Bill, We'll dive in here. I guess we kind of already started, but let's talk about the Penn
Yeah.
State offense as a whole against this Purdue defense. We talked about the Tyler Warren of it all. The other part of that equation was Drew Aller. I thought Aller played one of his best games of the season so far, of his career, I would even argue. Again, like I said, 17 of 19, 247 yards, 13 yards per attempt, which is really good. 3 touchdowns to 3 different receivers. And on the ground, he showed he can move a little bit. Finished the day with 4 carries for 22 yards. One of them, he just absolutely did a little bit of Manziel magic, for lack of a better term, in the pocket, where guys tried to tackle him high. Drew Aller's too strong of a guy to go down, and he tackled him high, fought through contact, scooted forward for I want to say a first down. I thought Aller played his best game. I think he did a very good job distributing the football. And again, I get the primary read was Tyler Warren, but it was very clear they were looking to get other guys involved and take those shots deep. And when the opportunity came to Trey Wallace, Aller chucked it deep, wide open. Really impressive throw, 60 yards on a dot on the money. Overall, Bill, I think Aller is making a lot of really good steps in his development, and I'm excited to see where he takes it after going on the road to Purdue, the place he threw his first collegiate pass 2 years ago, and showed that he has now developed into a very, very, very good quarterback in the Big Ten.
Yeah, completed 89.5% of his passes, which is the most that he has ever completed in a game as Penn State's starting quarterback, going 17 for 19. Passer rating of 250.8. Passer rating is the one that includes, just kind of everything. It is not solely on the quarterback. That is the highest of his career as highest of his career against a Power 5 team as Penn State's starting quarterback. He had a passer rating of 251.7 against Kent State earlier this year, QBR of 88.3, his fourth highest of the season, but the sixth time this year he has had a QBR above 80 on the year. And what I really liked from Drew in this game was when you watched how Purdue attacked, they basically did one of two things when Drew was dropping back to pass. Either one, they were basically bringing 5 guys where they had 3 down linemen, 2 edge rushers, and they were all going to be coming at Drew. And when that happens, he just stood there. He was really composed. They played a lot of man-to-man in those situations. That's just kind of Purdue's thing. Mm-hmm. Play a lot of man-to-man. And when that happened, just take the easy throw, take the throw to Tyler Warren because they're going to have a linebacker or a safety on him. When they decided to fool him, and they did fool him a few times by dropping into zone, he was really good at just kind of staying there, being patient, taking the little thing that they gave him to a guy like Katron Allen or a guy like Nick Singleton, the 2 running backs combined, 6 receptions for 64 yards and a touchdown on the day, or take off, run, pick up a couple of yards with your legs, nothing too crazy. And he was really in control of everything in a way that makes me really optimistic as they're going into the stretch run of the season and gearing up for the playoff. Because if Penn State was doing that thing that they sometimes do in a game like this, where it's just all right, we don't want Drew having to do too terribly much. Let's just run the ball 50 times with Katron, with Nick, with Bo coming in, Drew running it every here and there. We'll get Tyler back here to run the ball. I would have been a little discouraged by that. Mm-hmm. But the fact that they let Drew Aller go out there and just play and let him do some stuff, let him throw the ball, let him see some easy completions in this game. A lot of them to Tyler Warren, but still a lot of easy completions in this game. I think that's a really good thing for Penn State going forward.
And you mentioned if Penn State wanted to, they probably could have run the ball a million times for 600 yards. They were really efficient when they did run the ball. Penn State, 34 carries for 234 yards. That's 6.9 yards per carry and 3 touchdowns on the ground. The interesting thing here is, Bill, the leading rusher in terms of carries on this game was Corey Smith with 8 total. Warren got 3, Pribula got 5, Singleton 7, Smith 8, Aller 4, Katron 6, Tysier Denmark 1. We have been waiting for reinforcements to come in a little bit, and Corey Smith is a phenomenal reinforcement to enter Big Ten play down the stretch. He gave them a good amount of burst. I was excited that he got to lead this team in carries. Like, if you would have told me, Bill, in any game this season, somebody other than Nick Singleton or Katron Allen led the way in carries, I would assume, they've either been hurt or something nightmarish happened. Not the fact that, hey, game flow was just so easy that you could toss in a true freshman and he took advantage of his opportunities. A lot of people are going to talk about the Aller of it all and the Warren of it all because those made the big splash plays. But with the Tyler Warren 48-yard touchdown run, Pabula 49-yard touchdown run, and then from there, Singleton long of 10, Corey Smith long of 13, Aller 14, Katron 11. They hit holes. They hit medium runs. They hit a couple of big runs, although they came from a little bit different guys than we're used to. It was a really, I think, underrated day on the ground for this Penn State offense.
Yeah, and we know that Nick Singleton is carrying something. He got left the game against Washington early. Corey Smith, this is because obviously a big part of this is because Nick Singleton is he splits carries with Katron Allen, and by the time that Corey Smith went in, he was just the only guy who was playing running back for Penn State. But Corey Smith actually outsnapped Nick Singleton on the day. Nick Singleton had 17 snaps on the day. Corey Smith had 20. So I like the fact that they were able to keep Nick Singleton for taking too many unnecessary hits. I think in general, you don't want him with, again, the injury issues that he's been carrying, having to take too many unnecessary hits. But the fact that he was able to ease back into things ahead of next week against Minnesota, I think that was a really good thing. Katron Allen, more effective as a pass catcher than a runner, 6 carries for 20 yards, long as 11. I'm fine with that. I'm not too terribly concerned about what Katron Allen's raw numbers looked like against Purdue, especially on the heels of a game against Washington, where 20 carries for 98 yards and a touchdown. So yeah, I think if you ask James Franklin, he's probably very, very happy about the fact that we're able to get up by a lot. We're able to put the game out of reach, was able to get Corey Smith in there and let him be the bell cow of the running back room to some extent. Really happy about getting guys like, I'm going to go through the wide receiver snap counts right here. Trey Wallace led the way with 27 snaps. Liam Clifford had 21. Anthony Ivey had 20. Tyler Johnson had 19. Amari Evans, Julian Fleming both had 16. And Tysier Denmark had 11. And I say that to then benchmark it against the tight end room, where Khalil Dinkins had 38. Tyler Warren had 37. Luke Reynolds had 25. And then Jerry Cross got in for 5. It was a game where Penn State was able to get, Nick Singleton got some run, Katron Allen got some run, Trey Wallace, Liam Clifford, Julian Fleming, Tyler Warren. They got chances to play, chances to get out there, run up the score a bit. But when it came time to, to go back to that Bowling Green game, get guys opportunities that they might not have got, that they did not get because that game was closer than intended. Corey Smith was able to get out there for 20 snaps. Anthony Ivey, Tyler Johnson, Tysier Denmark got chances to play. Luke Reynolds and Khalil Dinkins is the number 1 tight end, got a ton of opportunity to play. They went deep into their bag on the offensive line. So they handled this game really well, really professionally, and put themselves in a position where nothing unnecessary happened in a game that they were always going to win, which is kind of all you can ask for in a game like this.
And 2 more guys I want to highlight before we flip over to the defense, and that's Bo Pribula and Luke Reynolds. Bo finished the day 5 of 8 for 58 yards and 1 touchdown through the air. And then, like I said, running the football, 5 carries, 56 yards, that 1 49-yard touchdown. Bill, of Bo's 3 incompletions, only one of them I think is a real incompletion. The other 2 were drops. The Denmark one, I guess. Yeah, the Denmark one.
The Denmark one came up on him a little bit faster than he was anticipating. It bounced off of his face max. But the Anthony Ivey one is one that, like, man, you want to be able to get on the field more. That's a play that
you got to make.
You got to make. It would have been for your first career touchdown. So that, bit of a punch to the gut for him, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's got to be tough. But the Denmark throw, I thought was a throw Bo couldn't make. And I know I said a lot of that after the Wisconsin game. Bo is starting to build a body of work, albeit very small, that he can make a lot of high-level throws. And that throw to Denmark, although it got on him a little quick, was in a tight window, and I got to give Bo credit. He put it on the money. running the football, I mean, the read he had, it wasn't like a spectacular play by Bo. It was just they ran a read option play and no one stayed with the quarterback at all. Like, he's never going to have a more wide open touchdown. And just good for Bo. Like, that's always cool anytime you can get in the end zone. It's always cool that it can happen, the first scoring play of a whiteout, or it could happen to drop almost 50 on Purdue's head. That's always kind of fun. And then Luke Reynolds, really good route by him, a tight end wheel. Bo hits him down the sideline, and Reynolds looked like he could not have been happier to get in the end zone. He has played a tough role this year. That third tight end, a guy who's responsible for mostly blocking, as a guy who was a high school quarterback, is a tough way to cut your teeth, especially as a guy who's played in every game as a true freshman. And to watch it pay off with his first career touchdown is just cool to see. That's a tough gig that he has, and he's answered the bell in every way, shape, and form, and I'm excited to see where he goes from here, because it was a good route, good throw by Bo, and good job to finish it, get in the end zone.
Yeah, and he was a talented player who I think every Penn State fan wanted to see him get on the field and get opportunities. He's been able to take advantage of the fact that playing time did open up with Andrew Rappelier's injury. We don't know what the offense would have looked like if Andrew Rappelier was able to play more, how that would have opened things up for himself, for the other tight ends, for Tyler Warren, especially if Tyler Warren could have essentially just been used as a wide receiver for the guys in the wide receiver room, whatever that might be. But he's gotten on the field. He's had to play a good amount of football as a result. And it took a little bit for him to finally get rewarded with his first touchdown, but he was able to finally get that. And it was really cool for him. And I would like to put it out there that I believe Baby Kittle should be his nickname. We will see if that ends up catching on, but I think if Pat Fryermuth could be Baby Gronk after Rob Gronkowski and not the TikTok personality, I think Luke Reynolds should be Baby Kittle.
I would agree with that. And I saw, is it Landon Tengwall? Was he the one who also had that comparison?
Yeah. Landon also had
that. Of Baby Kittle. So shout out to Landon. Bill, before we transition to the defense, let's pay a couple of bills. And let's give a shout out to our sponsor, Home Field Apparel. Home Field has been our podcast sponsor for the last 3 seasons since we have gone podcast only, and they make some of the coolest collegiate apparel in the marketplace today. Crew necks, t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, hats, joggers, you name it, they have it, and they have pretty much every school under the sun, and they are always adding more. With the holidays coming up, our listeners can get 15% off their first order with promo code RLR24. It's a great gift for the Penn State fan in your life. It's a great gift for the alum of pretty much any team in your life. Like I said, they are always adding more schools, and they really do take the time to go through the archives, find awesome ways to tie in the history of your school to their merch. And again, they are great partners to us. We're so thankful for them. And yeah, promo code RLR24, 15% off your first order. Homefieldapparel.com. Thank you to Homefield for sponsoring this podcast. And Bill, Abdul Carter's really good at football.
He's not bad. And the thing that was so funny about Abdul's day was you read his numbers: 5 tackles, all 5 solo tackles and 2 tackles for loss. He probably should have had another 4 tackles and 2 sacks and 3 tackles for loss. But I don't know if I've ever seen an edge rusher get held as much as he had. Or he was, with the refs essentially showing mercy to the tackle who had to deal with him. Abdul was just all over.
Menace. So was Denai. Both those guys were. This was a hell of a game for those guys. Denai Dennis Sutton himself, 3 tackles, all 3 solo, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss. When those guys are playing at this kind of level, and again, a big part of it was competition. I hate to say it. Purdue is just really bad, dude. This is a unit that can be very disruptive, especially with Abdul Carter really finding his footing now. Like I said, Abdul Carter was the team defensive player of the week. No surprise there. Nobody else really stood out because a lot of guys played. They racked up 47 tackles, and at least, looking at the stat sheet here, just eyeballing it, at least 30 guys recorded a stat in some way, shape, and form. It was similar to how the Penn State defense kind of ate for a lot of 2023. It was a lot of guys getting involved, and no one had a really dominant game in the box score. Abdul Carter was dominant. The play he had to stop that screen pass on the other side of the field is like absolutely terrifying. Like watching him run that guy down from behind is kind of crazy. And this defense, although it didn't get a turnover, and I know it allowed that late touchdown, and Franklin was quick to criticize those guys in his presser today, and that's good to uphold that standard for these younger guys. But Bill, this defense, I think, played about as lights out as you can ask for. Anybody outside of Abdul Carter really stand out for you?
I want to say one thing about the running
Yeah.
defense because uh, you look 28 carries, 85 yards, 3 yards per carry. We talked in the lead up to the podcast about Devin Mockabee, their starting running back, who's been a really good player for them over the years. At halftime, he was at 7 carries for 37 yards, 5.3 yards per carry. So a nice day, 5.3 yards per carry is nothing to sniff at. He ended the day with 11 carries for 40 yards at 3.6 yards per carry. So in the second half, he got 4 carries for 3 yards. And I think that's just a really good, a really good, what I don't know the word that I'm looking for here, but
Representation.
example of just, sure. Yeah. Of what this Penn State defense has been so good at this year, which is once they settle in, and they were really good before they settled into this game. It's worth mentioning that Hudson Card did not have a particularly fun time.
11 for 20 for him, 151 yards, 7.6 yards per attempt. He was eventually pulled, and Purdue tried it out 3 different quarterbacks. Their total stat line, 15 for 31, 217 yards and 1 touchdown. Touchdown to tight end Max Clare, who is a good ball player.
And
that's a good player.
Yeah, and they did a version of what Penn State did, was they just fed the ball to their best player as much as they possibly could, and ended up working out reasonably well for them in that they were able to score a touchdown on Penn State's defense by getting him the football. But when this Penn State defense kind of, it comes into the game expecting something, playing in a specific way. And they did a really good job on the first couple of drives before a long field goal drive, and then a long missed field goal drive by Purdue's offense. But once they get an opportunity, and I'm now going to just read this to you. Purdue in the first half, 5 plays, 10 yards and a punt, 3 plays, 6 yards and a punt, 12 plays, 71 yards and a field goal, 5 plays, 12 yards and a punt, 9 plays, 57 yards and a missed field goal. They get into the locker room for halftime. Purdue's drives went for 3, 4, 3, 3, 5, 3, and then 6 plays. Like, once this defense settles into games, and once this defense kind of gets that sense of how to beat you, they then go out there and beat you, even though maybe the personnel isn't as good, or maybe they're not as able to impose their will on a game the way that last year's defense was.
When Penn State was able to empty the bench pretty much, a ton of guys got really valuable experience. And a big part of that is because that Bowling Green game didn't go as planned. So everybody kind of has an extra game up for grabs, which is kind of nice in the end. Of the guys who played late, Jalen Harvey, who got hurt to kind of finish things out, was the one who flashed the most to me. He did have just 1 tackle, but it wasn't a pretty impressive tackle for loss. I don't care what the opponent is. If you're a true freshman in the Big Ten and you're able to go out there and show off that kind of burst, that's impressive. So I hope his injury is nothing serious. I hope he's able to get back on the field quickly. Although I know that Max Granville's red shirt has now been secured with 2 games to go. So I'm assuming that's a guy we're going to start to see a little bit more of. And of those other guys who played late, again, it's hard for me to tell because no one else really made any kind of flash plays, and they did allow that late score. But Dejon Lane, I thought, played a decent game in the secondary. He's kind of shifted to more of a back burner kind of guy with the emergence of Zion Tracy and Elliott Washington and how Penn State handles the secondary now. But with Zakee Wheatley, a redshirt junior, Jalen Reed, a true senior, they're going to need guys to step up. And I think he took a nice step in the right direction here.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I was glad that we got to see, kind of how deep they went into their bench, where in a game like this, looking towards getting guys reps with 2025 in mind and just letting them see what the speed of the college game is like, letting them see what that physicality is like, letting them see all these sorts of things. So a guy like Kenny Wosley getting in, a guy like Antoine Belgrave Shorter getting in, Dakari Nelson, Dwan Wayne, as you mentioned, Caleb Artis, Jalen Harvey, Colin Dinkins, John Mitchell, like a lot of guys who are going to be contributors to this Penn State defense down the road were able to get in. I would bet that James Franklin deep down is overjoyed that a lot of these young guys were on the field and playing when Purdue scored its touchdown.
Agreed.
Because now he gets to just be a huge dick to them. And he gets to yell at them and scream at them and all these sorts of things. And then at the end of the game, Purdue was able to get the ball in down to Penn State's half of the field. There was so much stuff that that the coaching staff now gets to like ride them for. But at the end of the day, it's a bunch of guys who were able to get serious run in a college football game that they haven't really gotten a chance to have before, other than like the Kent State game. And that's a really cool thing for all of them, especially in a game where, again, Purdue never really seriously threatened them. And there was no like harm to getting these guys snaps at really any point of the game.
No, and it's great. And again, I know that the Minnesota game is coming up, and who knows what that's going to look like. Maryland could be another really good opportunity for a lot of these guys to maximize that 4-game opportunity. And with a lot of those reps coming late in the season after these guys have had the seasoning of a full regular season of practice. And that's what makes me excited about watching these guys moving forward. It's a cool story, and I'm really pleased how Penn State's handling it.
Yeah.
So, Bill, we'll put a bow on it. Penn State 49, Purdue 10. Before we do that, though, let's give out some game balls. Bill, give me one for offense, one for defense, one for special teams. Start us off with your offensive game ball.
I'll go with Tyler Warren. It's obvious. It's easy, but sometimes you have to take the obvious and the easy thing. Whether who you are building your entire offense around as Andy Kotelnicki or as me handing out game balls on the podcast. And then on defense, I will give it to Deny Dennis Sutton. I would give it to Abdul Carter, but you're
leaving that for me because you took Warren.
I'm leaving that for you. And I thought Dennis Sutton, when he's a really physically imposing football player. He's not the most like bendy or quick or athletic guy, but he's big and he's strong and he's mean. And seeing him get a sack early in the game and continue to grow and progress and use his physicality the way that he does, something I think is really good and a really good compliment to Abdul Carter.
Agreed. Any miscellaneous one you want to give out? You got a third one to give out, whoever you want to give it to.
Ryan Barker went 7 for 7 on PATs. Good job, young man. Also, Tyseer Denmark had like a punt return that was pretty nice. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Good development to have happen there. Bill, offense for me, I would go Warren, of course, but I'm going to give it to Bo Pribula because we have to give credit if we're going to give consternation for the backups in Penn State's defense for not getting the job done. We got to give credit to Bo for leading the offense on a couple of drives that got the job done. Again, Penn State did not settle for field goals in this game at all. Bo generated explosive plays, and he kept the offense humming, kept moving the sticks, and kept on getting guys valuable experience. So shout out to Bo offensively. Defensively, Abdul Carter. Dude is unreal. I was nervous about his slow start, and it just turns out it takes some time. And because he is playing his best football when it matters the most. Miscellaneous for me, I'll give it to Zion Tracy. Nice punt returning, and then had a very good tackle on kick coverage as well. It's cool to see that guy remain engaged on special teams, even with his role in the defense continuing to grow. For a 3-star from New England to become this kind of contributor as a true sophomore is a cool story. And I'm really happy with the development of a guy like Zion Tracy. Elliott Washington got dinged up in this game, so who knows what that's going to mean for cornerback depth moving forward. We'll find out where Elliott Washington kind of stands on Wednesday after practice, but Zion Tracy is a guy who I'm excited to watch moving forward, and he's going to break one as a punt returner one of these times. I feel confident before we close the book on the 2024 Penn State football season, whenever that would be, we're going to have a Zion Tracy punt return touchdown in there as well. I feel good about that.
I wouldn't hate that. It's getting late early for that. I would certainly like it if he could do it against Minnesota this upcoming week
Yeah.
because, I'm far more optimistic about Penn State beating Minnesota than you are because you are pinning all your hopes on wanting to fire James Franklin on Minnesota winning this football game.
I do not want to fire.
But
I do not want to. No, that is not true. I do not want to fire James Franklin, but I will if they lose this game.
I don't think Penn State's going to have too much trouble
You never
with
know.
Minnesota.
You never know.
This is my general theory going into this game is that the Penn State fans who are really worried about Minnesota are not worried because of this Minnesota team. They are worried about the 2019 Minnesota team, and they just haven't watched Minnesota since then because this Minnesota team is a team that Penn State matches up pretty well with as long as they can avoid turning the ball over, which is a concern because Minnesota's back seven is quite good.
They are really good. It's not so much 2019 Minnesota for me, Bill. It's like Georgia Tech beat Miami. Vanderbilt beat Alabama. Like, these kind of games happen all the time in college football, where like a team that doesn't match up very well, who is way overmatched, just comes out and finds a way to get a dub. And I get that there's nothing I can apply to this game based upon those games, but it's been a long time since Penn State had a dumb game like that. And I'm just, with how much it feels like is in front of them, I'm just a little bit nervous that they stumble. That's all it is.
Well, the fact that you said this happens in college football, and then you 3 sentences later said, and Penn State isn't a team that has done this in forever. Does that not kind of like...
No, because Alabama hadn't done it in forever.
Well, because Alabama hadn't done it in forever because they were coached by Nick Saban. They are now coached by someone who is not Nick Saban and who is changing up Alabama football. You know what I mean?
But still, it's like
this is a thing that James Franklin has been very, very, very good about over the years. Like the last time he outright lost a game as a favorite was, I believe, the Illinois game in 2021, which they lost because Sean Clifford couldn't walk. So like this is the kind of game that, again, I think a lot of people are looking back to when in 2019, when Minnesota football was led by a veteran quarterback who I don't think had a cup of coffee in the NFL, but like understood what their offense was supposed to be, had a really good running game built around a number of solid running backs and a really big and physical and nasty offensive line, a passing game that was built around 2 NFL guys, a wide receiver, a defense that was built around a guy who is currently the best player in his position in the NFL in Antoine Winfield Jr., when he was, I believe he was a junior. I believe he was an upperclassman.
Correct. He was a true junior, I believe, that year.
So you look at that Minnesota team, and now you look at this Minnesota team where it's a quarterback who has been sacked more than every quarter. I believe Purdue's quarterbacks after this past weekend have been sacked 24 times of the season. Max Brosmer has been sacked 23 times. They're running the ball for 3.6 yards per carry as a team. Their top receiver, Daniel Jackson, not a bad player, but only 63 catches for 3 touchdowns and 712 yards. Not the kind of numbers that we saw out of Tyler Johnson and out of Rashad Bateman when they were at Minnesota. Their defense, again, it's led by a very good back seven.
Another very good safety who might be the best at his position. That is it. Coy, what's his name?
He's a true freshman. He's not on the level of a guy like a Caleb Downs, for instance, but Coy Parrish, a true freshman, a high 4-star recruit, has been excellent for them. It's just their entire...
He's freshman All-American, no doubt. That Coy Parrish...
Oh, yeah. He will be a freshman All-American.
Yeah, and he will be like the Antoine Winfield Jr. of college football, I think, at one point. I think that dude is that good.
He very well could be. But you look at what this Minnesota team is, you look at what the 2019 Minnesota team is, and you look at the kind of teams that Penn State tends to have success against. It's teams where you can get to and speed up the quarterback. It's teams where you can bottle up the run game relatively easily. It's teams where, they're not constantly feeding the football to one guy. Their ability to turn Penn State over is something that is a little bit of a concern. Not because I think Penn State's going to give them the football, but because Minnesota is good at taking the football away. But for the most part, I don't think this is a game that as I'm sitting here on Monday looking at it, I'm like, I'm especially concerned about.
I'm not like especially concerned either, Bill. I'm just like 15% of me is like, all right, I'm just kind of nervous. Like, I don't think I will not pick Penn State to lose this game. Spoiler alert for our preview pod later in the week. Please still listen. We'd love to have you. But I definitely have my ears perked up a little bit. Again, similar to how like Kansas beat BYU, Georgia Tech beat Miami. Like these things happen. Like a 15% chance might even be generous, but I'm always nervous about it. Since I watched the Penn State Michigan State game 7 years ago and it broke my brain irreversibly forever. Bill, that's all I got. Anything else you want to touch on before we send the folks off into the rest of the week? I know we had a couple of folks message us like asking us to give some takes on where we think things are headed playoff wise. 1-0 mentality over here.
Okay. Let me address this because this has been driving me absolutely insane over the last however many weeks. There are a lot of people who are trying to tell you, the college football fan, what they think the playoff is going to look like. And I completely understand trying to do that. What I want you to try to do, dear person listening to this, is to look at all of that and go, okay, and then just go on with the rest of your day. Do not worry about it. We have no idea how this committee is going to go about its business, how it is going to view wins, how it's going to view losses, how it's going to view SP plus, FPI, strength of schedule, all these various. We don't know how any of that is going to work in a 12-team playoff. So just don't worry about it. Just worry about Penn State taking care of business against Minnesota this Saturday and Maryland next Saturday. And an 11-1 Penn State team whose only loss is by one possession to an Ohio State team that I think is probably going to end up as the number 1 and the number 2 team in America is going to be in the playoff. I don't know where. I don't know who they're going to play. I don't know what their path is going to be. No one has any idea how to project any of that stuff right now because this is the first year of the 12-team playoff, and that's fine. Just don't worry about it for a while. Your mental health will be so much better if you do not worry about like an ACC writer saying that Penn State isn't going to make the playoff, because that guy has he has as much of an idea as you, as me, as someone you'll walk past on the street on a given day. Just please chill.
You heard it here first, folks. Bill DeFilippo telling fans of the Pitt Panthers with their 3-game losing streak to block out the noise and not give up hope on the playoff rankings.
Correct.
That's my big takeaway from it. Bill, very well said. Don't stress, man. Like, this has a chance to be the first 11-win regular season, I think, of my lifetime. Like, I'm not going to stress about it. I'm along for the ride at this point. Bill, have they won 11? You're making a face. They definitely have not won 11 regular season games since I've been alive.
Since you've been alive?
No way. It's been at least 30 years, I'm thinking.
2000 and
regular season wins, not like including
bowl
games.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's like 94 since 12-0 or whatever that was, 93, excuse me. It's probably been at least 25, 30 years. We can look that up. We don't have a research department. We could probably have one. It could be Craig. Who's to say? But yeah, Bill, and I'm just enjoying the ride. Like, I'm having fun. Tyler Warren's awesome. Anybody who says he's getting the ball too much is just trying not to buy stock in the first overall pick, and that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, it is worth remembering that right now Penn State's number 1 receiver coming into this year plays for Auburn. Like, they got to patch this all up together somehow, and the way that they have figured out how to do that is by getting the ball as frequently as possible to the best player at his position in the country.
Does Auburn make a bowl game, Bill? They're 4-6. They have A&M and Bama left on the schedule.
Oh no, of course they're absolutely not going to make. No, of course not.
Tough scenes. All right, Bill, that's all I got. So we send the folks off into their week.
Cool. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Roar Lions Roar. If you liked what you heard, be sure to leave us a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, jump in the comments, talk about the Penn State football team with other Penn State football fans. Be sure to follow us over there on Twitter over at RLRblog, or where we're posting a bit more frequently over on Blue Sky, where we're at roarlionsroar.com. Thank you to Homefield, as always, for sponsoring this podcast. Again, it's 15% off your first order with promo code RLR24. And for my co-host, Bill DeFilippo, I'm Matt Flibovitz. Take care, everyone, and go State.